Okay, everyone, let's get started. I want to recreate a presentation I did at Portland School of Astrology. It's called The 15 Wild Beasts of Ayurveda, so pay attention. It's actually kind of advanced material for people who are interested in medical astrology. It's still useful if you're not interested in that, but it's more geared for people who are interested in the energetic system of Ayurveda and kind of thereby Chinese medicine. So, I don't know, it informs my practice as an herbalist and a healer to know to see where those worlds collide and the patterns that we can observe. Oh wow, I'm just gonna share my screen. Wait, what happened? Um, where did you go? Okay, so let's do this. 15 Wild Beasts of the Body, the Hidden Principles of Ayurveda. So yeah, first, check out Queer Astrology Club on YouTube for free video lectures. There's also astrovedicus.wordpress.com. That's got really cool blog information about herbs and also all things Ayurveda and astrology, Hermetic, Hellenistic magic, stuff like that. This is Queer Astrology Club at Gmail. You can email me with questions, or if you want a reading, or if you want to know about studying with me. So the 8 limbs of Ayurveda are as such: internal medicine, surgery, kind of like upper body medicine, the upper channels, ENT, ear, nose, and throat, gynecology and pediatrics, toxicology, psychiatry, rejuvenation, and aphrodisiac. So 7 and 8 are interesting because they're kind of unique to Ayurveda in the sense that there's a whole system for purging and managing the elements. Therefore, I've kind of personified the elements as wild beasts. And when you kind of purge them or remove them, there's a state afterwards when you need to rejuvenate and rebuild the tissues. And that's kind of what aphrodisiacs are for, most importantly. It's just rekindling the strength of the body much more than it is a sexual tonic. That's just kind of a side effect. But really the use is to rebuild the tissues of the body. Sankhya philosophy is great to review. That's kind of the monistic yeah, I guess it is in a way. It's kind of like in almost all polytheistic cultures, like there is a strong tenet of the oneness of all of these deities. And so Sankhya kind of just goes through the division of the one into the 10,000 different things. It's a beautiful sort of way to frame the world and really helps with understanding how the body works, coincidentally. Or not coincidentally. So the fires of the body, yeah, this dude, Maharishi Charaka, there's 2 main books of Ayurveda, actually 3, I'm sorry. And one of them was written by this guy, is considered like the best, the beast, the, this Vaidya, this masterful physician who basically could see really powerfully into the nature of the body. And most importantly, the fires of the body, which he wrote a lot about. Managing the fires of the body was basically his great work. And digestion, right? The catalytic process of the body is what allows us nourishment. And what allows you nourishment allows you longevity. Therefore, he was very interested in longevity. Charaka Samhita. So he wrote, but first there's this oath of Hippocrates. Like anytime you're going to study medicine, it's like anytime I'm doing medical astrology with people, I'm always like, I think you have to take the medical oath, but not really. So here it is. I swear by Apollo. You know what? Let's not read this. Let's just do the core principles. So yeah, basically what is it? It's a divine oath to the unseen powers, not to human institutions. So any information you learn about this that I might give to you or medicine, I don't know, you want to be using it with integrity and kind of like maybe have a spiritual practice. Because it's better to be loyal to the lineage of Ayurveda than it is to human institutions, if that makes sense. So respecting that is great. this information I think should be given for free. Who understand Sankhya philosophy and understand like the basic, or on the kind of like the basic spiritual train, or at least the basic energetic train, conceptual train, theoretical train. So give no poisons, even though dosage determines what is a poison. You know, doctors give poison all the time. That's chemo. But so basically, though, you don't want to hurt people is the concept. Also, everything you say when someone is giving you astrological information about medicine, about medical stuff, that's like, consider it like HIPAA. Like, use the same practices for guarding your documents, protecting your charts, protecting your notes. You know, lock them away, keep them hidden, or like keep them in, you know, having the right you know, security online, having the right e-security is really important. Don't do surgery. Don't diagnose like a surgeon. That's a whole different school that we're going to be talking about today. We're not going to be talking about that. Don't steal from your clients, which means don't, like, you know, extort them in their illness or their weakness or their fear or their mental grief or whatever. And don't seduce people trusting you with their health. Basically, don't take advantage of people who are vulnerable, and unsick people can be vulnerable. So you do have to like sort of emulate divine qualities if you're going to really be useful. And if you're not going to be useful, I don't really see why you're on my page. You're trying to learn what I'm trying to teach. So the book of prognostics, this comes from Hippocrates. Before we go back to Vaidya Charaka, and the Charaka Sushruta, which is the text. So prognostic just means like to predict a likely outcome of an illness. So it's just like seeing the patterns of how the body responds to these energetic disturbances, and what are those patterns? Just pattern scenes, pattern recognition. If you're good at that, you can be a good medical astrologer. If you're not good at that, well, actually, you just can't be a good astrologer if you can't see patterns. So basically, he says, it appears to me, blah, 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 it's an excellent thing for the physician to cultivate prognosis, which is foreseeing and foretelling. So the bold says, correctly guessing symptoms a patient failed to mention builds trust and even more readiness to give testimony. So having the chart is really important, because you can kind of see like, oh, Mars is transiting your first. Are you experiencing inflammation? Oh, I didn't say that. Wow, I trust you more now because, you know, you could see that in the chart. And so foretelling makes people feel secure. That's what this is just trying to say. Building rapport, building security, building reassurance, building trust, building their confidence in you. If they don't have confidence in you as a medical astrologer, they're not going to implement any dietary or herbalism or any sort of advice you might give them. It's just not going to happen. So that's, so if anything be divine in the diseases, and to learn a foreknowledge of this also, thus a person will be more esteemed to be a good physician. So basically, yeah, if there be anything divine in the diseases, meaning planetary afflictions as well. Because, right, you can't just use, basically, I think this shows you can't just use pathology or just like, you're going to need a telescope as well as a microscope, in other words. Why are you being this way? Okay, 20 gunas, god damn it. These are the 20 qualities of any like matter on Earth, basically like out of the primordial goddess, the dark, the Shakti, the primordial life energy. Things are kind of different ratios of these qualities. You know, how do you read this chart? Well, yeah, read the English on the inside. Guru means heavy. Manda means slow. So these are the opposites. So heavy is opposite to light, slow is opposite to quick, cold is opposite to hot. And then you look at the elements down below and you see that each have a shape. And if you want to know the qualities of air, you look for the hexagons. You say, oh, air is lagu, air is light, it is dry, it is rough, it is mobile, it is subtle, it is clear. Fire is light, it is sharp, it is liquid. It's also hot, obviously. Water is heavy, slow, cold, unctuous, smooth, soft, slimy, and liquid. So yeah, everything has variations of these opposites, which will be one, not the other, right? That's the whole thing. And then these elements kind of combine in and of themselves to make the doshas, which are vata, pitta, and kapha, right? So vata is a combination of air and ether, pitta is fire and water, and kapha is water and earth. So that's whenever the elements enter the body. And doshas really represent the behavior of movements. That's how I like to really summarize it. It's movement of the elements within the body as governed by the wind, which is the most important, vata, the vata side of things. You have all of these inside your body. It's not like, they're not teams, football teams. You're not, they're not, you have to have them all in your body. Just some people show a greater ratio, right? But yeah, ether basically is the space, the vessel is the container of the body, air is its motion and nourishment, water, or distribution, not nourishment. Air is more distribution. Water would be nourishment, flow, and liquidity. Earth would be nourishment, solidity, and stability. Fire would be light, heat, transformation, metabolism, and sort of the catalyst of the body, the enzymatic processes. So yeah, the doshas are the language of potential dysfunction. Two main schools of thought in Ayurveda, basically you can divide people into camps: surgeon versus the internist. The Acharya Sushruta considered blood a fourth dosha. It's true. To him, blood would be the most important tissue of all. Prakriti versus Vikriti, your natural constitution versus your disturbed state or your seasonal state. Yeah, so what that basically is in medical astrology is cut and dry. You have to understand this. Your birth chart is your natural constitution. That's going to be your prakriti. And that's when you do the doshas. Like, what dosha are you? What you're talking about is what is your birth chart's natural constitution? And then your vikriti would be your transits. And that's going to be like, what is my current issue? Well, if I'm Mars in Cancer in the birth chart, but Mars is currently in Sagittarius, and the 6th, it's going to be probably intense or totally different, right? Because Mars will be in the water sign when water has those qualities of dull, slow, lethargic. So being a watery Mars and a fiery, and then suddenly being a fiery Mars, right? The vikriti, that vitiated state. So you might have a more inflammatory response, an inflamed response currently, even though you typically don't. So it wouldn't be like a chronic thing. Typically, obviously the slower the planet moves, the illness it brings is going to be typically more chronic. And also show how hidden it is. The faster moving planets tend to have louder or illnesses that speak in such a way that they can also be remedied more easily and quickly. Just like it's easier to stop something when it's a small problem rather than letting the problem get big and then trying to stop it, right? It's better to weed the weed when it's small than wait until it's a tree. Same concept. If you can read these transits, you can really do that. And that's that's the point of medical astrology, is it not? Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So we're just like we're just reviewing the same thing. You have to understand these things. So basically you can divide the body into sthanam, which is the what I consider like the thrones of the elements. Upper channels are Kapha. That's the water earth. That's the sinuses, nostrils, throat, the bronchi, lungs. Pitta is the liver, spleen, gallbladder, stomach, duodenum, and pancreas, and all the gates of hell throughout the intestinal acidic tract of death and doom. And then Vata is the small intestines and large intestines, and that's kind of the downward expelling function, but also the distribution of resources throughout the colon and hydration and minerals and So yeah, that's just the general overview, but we're gonna keep zooming in. But first we have to understand the sort of pathological process. This is critical. Gotta know this. If you don't know this, you're gonna just not really get any of the rest of the presentation. So you should just conceptualize this well. It's easy visually if you're a visual learner. Just look at the fucking picture. Like it starts in one glass, it overflows, and then it spreads to other glasses, and then it spills onto the table, and you've got a big fucking chronic illness, and it's really bad, and or terminal illness, or it's an accumulation of waste and ama in the body. So then you have these like, sort of cancer symptoms, these tissues that betray the body. Indeed, the nature of the body is perverted or vitiated, as we say. The vitiation, the vikriti, wasn't addressed, and so this process became where it accumulated. It was aggravated, it overflows, it localized, manifests, and then the pathological process is in full swing. So yeah, basically, stage 1 is when the first glass is just starting to fill up, when it's full, and the glass will feel its own issues. Like that's like the initial gastrointestinal states. And indeed, Ayurveda says that all disease starts within the GI tract. So that's why diet is so huge in Ayurveda and hugely remedial and rejuvenatory, because if you understand the energetic principles, food really can be your medicine, but you have to be educated in this information. So if you're not, it just clarifies so much with what you actually need to eat. There's so many diets and misleading things, especially within the American culture, that can lead you astray, right? So it's an elemental thing of like a keto diet or paleo. That's good for pittas. That's good for fire people who have really strong digestion, but it's not good for vatas. They get sick. I see it all the time because this is my job, right? I see people doing the wrong diets and getting the appropriate gastrointestinal accumulation of elements. It's just like, I've seen it. I've been doing it long enough. Pittas can do whatever they want. They can go through the fire signs, these fire dominants. They can go through fad diets very easily with less damage because they are children of hell. And so they have really good digestion and good skin and muscles. They're just like athletes, those people, jocks. Sorry, I was bullied. So anyway, overflow, it localizes. What that means is that it's starting to localize into other cups. Manifestation would be when it spills out onto the table, and then it becomes a systemic, full-natured issue. And then 6 would be, of course, like the full expression of the disease is seen. So just like how different stages of the mushroom make it different to develop, that's like a disease. So you can think it, like, for example, you can think a mushroom as one thing, but that's just because it's young. And then when it grows up, you're like, oh, it was a different mushroom. Same thing with an illness. It depends on which stage you're catching it. It will look like different things. So 2 illnesses will look very similar because they're baby mushrooms, or they're, old and you can't really tell anymore because the mushroom's so mature. And it can be harder. So that's kind of the analogy that I like to think of or conceptualize it. It's like you have to think not only about the disease, but where it is, or think about the client, or patient, or the client, and where they're at in their specific elemental problem. And you have to be really good. That's the key. That's the hard part, is being really good at seeing the different prodromal symptoms, or, this is super difficult. The Ayurvedic system, basically, because it's so GI heavy, the concept is this, right? Start here. So that accumulation and aggravation of the element, whatever element it is, any element can do this. It starts in the GI tract, but it starts affecting the dosha signature that's going out of balance. Then the total digestion is disrupted, and then you start getting the blood changes, the systemic issues, and then the formation of wastes. And then those tissues develop those wastes, and you get a manifestation of disease. Well, they describe that in Western medicine as first stage would be, gut dysbiosis, which turns into a permeability of the gut, which leaks toxins into the blood, which leads to an inflammatory response, which leads to chronic states of inflammation and stress, which, causes its own neurological issues, which leads to chronic inflammation and systemic disease, resulting in the concept that, a disease is a result of an impaired GI tract. So either way you want to talk about it, you can talk about it, conceptualize it if you want. The gut permeability, this dysbiosis, which is where, your body's fires and the acidic qualities of your body have, not the acidic qualities, the acids, the actual acids in your body are either bad in quality, or they're inappropriate in quantity. You can have you can have two elemental issues. The quality of the element is bad, or the quantity. Either it's excessive or it's completely run out. If I have good quality water, but I have no water, it doesn't really matter. If I have good, bad quality water, but a lot of water, that's still a different disease, but it's a water disease. You see, it's a language. It's like, it's the states of life, the states Ayurveda, the science of life, the changes, these cycles. And so understanding the cycles of the moon and the cycles of the planet help us more and more understand why we're experiencing these either temporary or like long-running illnesses or weaknesses, or, you know. So the subdoshas are the elements in action. So each, you know, it's very level one to be like, oh, what are you, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? You know, and at the end, I think I put like a test, a quiz we can look at. But yeah, Vata, there's 5 Vata, 5 Pitta, and 5 Kapha. Well, if you've noticed, if you're keen, you can see that there's 15. And then these are the names of the 15 wild beasts that I've personified in later slides. But here, you know what the main point is that there's a fire vata, a water vata, an air vata, an earth vata, and an ether vata. So within each one of these, there's an elemental sort of child. So the fire's doshic children are samana vata, pachaka pitta, and kledika kapha. And you'll see more why later. We can come back to this, it'll make more sense. Just know that there's a symmetry even within the elemental distinctions. And so let's go through the beasts. Oh wait. First, the sites of Pitta. So we're going to start with the Pitta beasts, but you have to know where Pitta resides, or what organs Pitta prefers, because its nature likes them, right? Like the navel and digestion, subcutaneous fat, eyes, vision, blood, liver and spleen and gallbladder, the things that make these digestive enzymes. Sweat and sebaceous glands, right? Because Pitta and heat, you're going to naturally be thinking of what? The cooling system of the body. The sweat and the subcutaneous fat are very much linked in quality. You can smell the quality of someone's fat tissue through their sweat, because water produces fat. The water element, but fire is very much will be smelled. The quality of the fire will be smelled and carried through the water element. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, stomach is also obvious because that's the container of the acids. But Pitta tends to be more the bottom half. Does that make sense? Because the upper half is more kapha, more mucosal. And then the bottom half, you know, your whole stomach shouldn't be necessarily filled with acid. Hopefully. It's a ratio, a good balance is necessary of liquid to food to acid for the digestion to be appropriate. That's why actually digesting things and just eating as a human is very hard to do appropriately in a modern age, I guess. Being such fucking train wreck. What a train wreck culture we live in. Oh God, I'm going on a rant. The qualities are hot, liquid, mobile, sharp, oily, and light. That's it. Those are the qualities of Pitta. So you're going to see Aries, Leo, and Gemini kind of be, interestingly, like really quick to disturb Pitta sites. And then of course the planets, Mars, Sun, Moon, and Jupiter. Moon will kind of affect things because she's the coolant system, and when she's in a heated place, it tends to blow out Mars, I notice, at least for me. It could just be because I'm Moon in Aries and Mars rules my Moon. But I also see that in other people when it's, I just think that's true though. I probably am more sensitive to Moon-Mars configurations. I guess you can tell I'm Moon in Aries, right? I kind of go on like really tyrannical tirades. So the first beast is Pachaka Pitta, digestive intelligence. So these are kind of like the intelligences of the body. So that's why I call them the Pitta beasts or the fire beasts. But the first one isn't very intense or scary, right? He's a sleepy leopard. Because Pachaka Pitta is the most important fire in the body, and it's like the zone of the stomach acid, as I was saying earlier, because it's kind of where the digestive process happens. The breakdown of of tissue and of food products into their raw essential sort of nectar or essence, so that each different tissue can take the appropriate nutrients from each food substance. And that's a lot of work. All your cells are doing all this stuff, and so you get sleepy like a leopard. So that's why I made it this. Rajikapita, the preening vulture. This is it's more, more so than creating tissues through the digestion process, which is destructive in and of itself. Another process is destroying the red blood cells to kind of make new cells, right? You have to be able to clean up the waste, the janitor system of the body of the blood cells is almost more important than how you produce new blood cells, because that material that they use, that the spleen uses. So another side of Pitta is the spleen, liver and spleen. That's like the mid-central part, the stundum, the throne, the fiery throne, right? But we're just going through the different functions of the organs and explaining why they represent different facets of that element. So I gave this vulture because, yeah, obviously cleanup crew, and you can see Rajaka just means red. It means bright red. That's all it means. So it gives your body its beautiful rosiness, fullness of luster of skin, tone, quality. It's like when you just feel good and have a good when your engine is purring and running in a good level, it's your Rajaka Pitta is probably pretty good, because the red quality of you is good. And when someone gets sick, what happens? You see Rajaka fades, you get pale. Pallor is the sign of death. So in a way, a really good sign of someone being like, the fire is shut off, or the fires of the body, the Pitta is really ill, is because you'll see pallor, paleness. Like, and people can get, like, you can see, like, people in my family, or we're Mexican, I'm very light-skinned in my family, but a lot of my dark-skinned family, I've seen them have pale, sick moments, and they do, even from dark Mexicans, like, you can tell something's off within the fire of the body, the luster, and you get it. So spleen and liver, we've kind of gone through the digestive process with the leopard, and then vulture, now we're on the nest of wasps, Sadaka Pitta. Sadaka Pitta. This is kind of how the intelligence of the body that digests and sort of assimilates and tries to bring meaning to the impulses of the nervous system. So this is the most meta, intense job of Pitta, because it's your own personal intelligence, and kind of it's like through this Sadaka Pitta is where your ego kind of like gains information, or can be co-opted by different ego states. But that's neither here nor there. That's a different function of like human consciousness. On just the level of like elemental function, this is for sure like the hive. That's where all the impulses of the body come back, and then a single wasp has to like put everything in its right cell or right zone. Yeah, so it's the interpretation of the intelligences of the signals of the body, of your five senses. Alochika Pitta, the soaring eagle. This is the visual one. It's the orbital, right? It goes back to your occiput. Oh my God, am I blanking right now? Your optic nerve. Why was I saying orbital? Optic. Your optic nerve. That's basically Alochika Pitta's size, right? And that specific ability to see. Also, it has this kind of metaphysical connotation where it's like your spiritual side as well, and how perceptive you are, right? Like some people are hella perceptive and know when I'm lying to them, and other people just don't have a clue. So it's like, and even when I'm really being like clever or foxy, people with strong Alochika Pitta are like, oh, they see what I'm trying to do. It's also like has to do with your physical myopia, the shape of your eyes and things like that, the way light concentrates or is fortified. So it's like kind of a fiery process, right? Like when you magnify light, it gets hot and you can burn paper or burn ants, or if you're a tyrannical kid. But basically, yeah, the soaring eagles are known for being able to see for miles. Brajaka Pitta is the colorful cuttlefish. This is really cool because the cuttlefish has such interesting skin that can change color, texture, like even glow and make weird, like, I don't know, just very expressive and yeah, basically it's kind of like the body's immune system on like a skin level, on a barrier skin level. Parajika Pitta. Yeah, it's definitely all the like sweat sebaceous stuff I was talking about earlier. And also it has to do with like, that's why we put medicines on our skin, because your skin has a digestive capacity too. And your skin needs to be nourished as well. And the tissues need to be taken care of. It's your defense mechanism, it's your barrier. So, which is kind of martial and fiery as well, a defense, the castle walls. You can tell a lot about a person's skin if they're hydrated or not. A lot of diagnostics come from being able to see Brajaka Pitta, and if they're oily a little bit, they have a nice oily skin, have nice healthy oil levels. Your natural lipid layer will be healthy. But also that's, if it's not, that's why we put, we want to nourish the Brajaka Pitta through the skin. And that's why if you live in jungle climates or in the equatorial climates, you don't even need to take internal medicine. You can just put medicine on your skin, and through Brajaka Pitta, through the body's digestive capacity, through this Pitta, through this wild beast, medicine can reach your bloodstream and your whole body. Slower process, but with, good effects. Moving on to Vata, these are the sites. The qualities are cold, light, dry, mobile, clear, subtle, and rough. And you can see it shares qualities with Pitta, which is what? Light, dry, mobile. It's just fire is hot and dry. Vata is cold and dry. So they're both kind of drying. The elements are the signs that can be very famous for causing Vata disturbance are Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. But also I can see it in Sagittarius as well. That's regional issues. Sagittarius, Scorpio, Virgo, Aquarius, Capricorn. Yeah, if you have any dominant air element stuff, and then our air planets, such as Saturn, Sun, and Mercury going through these regions, either elementally, which is the air signs, or the regions ruled, you're going to have Vata issues. Like right now, everything's in Aquarius and Capricorn, and I'm really struggling with my Vata problems. My chronic pain has been pretty intense recently, which makes sense. Venus and Pisces has helped, but not really. So the first animal is Pranavata, the surfacing whale, because Prana is the first beast. It's the beast of nourishing the body through oxygen, through breathing. So this is the principle of the cycles of wind and air. And that's the most important. Like you'll die without air faster than you'll die without food. So these are kind of, for the Vata, the 5 winds, the 5 Vatas are kind of the most important. Samana Vata is the concept of I watched a spider make a web once, and I just watched the whole thing. It took forever, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to meditate. So I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is like Samana Vata. It's like bringing all of the energy down towards the middle of the body. And this is kind of the wind of the body it's like the wind generated when you stir the pot of the cauldron, right? If you let the pot just sit, the food at the bottom is going to stick and burn. So you have to stir the pot for digestion to be good. Same concept with the spider moving in a concentric way back towards the center, and where she waits patiently for her meal. Same thing. We want to be balancing Samana Vata and have good, calm mind. I see that when people are disturbed in anxiety or anger or stress, Samana Vata is very easily disturbed. It's a very fragile spider. And if she will stop stirring, and then that causes a lot of you can have really good digestion, really good fire, but not really good digestive mobility or motility or movement, which can cause acidic problems, right? Because then all the acid's just sitting and not circulating. So again, it's not only about quality of digestive capacity, it's that the transportation piece. You can't miss that piece. The wind that moves, and these are all directional, right? This one comes down and through the body, actually. This one is, he's ejecting air out. But really this is prana, it's about him breathing. That's the whole point, him coming up to breathe. So the air goes, the movement is wind down and through the upper channel into the middle. Samana is like the middle, from the outside external in to the center. So it's like, it would be a spiral shape. And then Uddanavata would be up and out, which is that keeps your spine. It's the motion of keeping your spine erect and standing up, which is important for humans to do tasks. And it also gives you your voice. It's the wind that lets you speak and express yourself and scream and shout. And it's also, I think, like emotional uprisings and emotional movements as well. But yeah, the howling monkey. I was in Mexico and we had to try to sleep next to howler monkeys. It was impossible, very loud. But yeah, just that, it's just all of your speech, your component, your diaphragm in those zones. And again, that very important innervation of the spine moving upward. Seems kind of, it's like burping as well, like anything that's sneezing, a lot of that can be Uddanavata as well. Things ejecting up and out, like vomiting. Uddanavata gets agitated and projects food out. That's the wind, that's the transport wind. It requires a windy escort for that vomit. So then your beast gets pissed off. Right? When something happens when you're sick, you have to think about, like, would that monkey like that? Like, no. Like, oh, I'm not breathing deep enough. Is my whale happy? Oh, is my spider being disturbed? So you can conceptualize things like that, like, if you need to. It helps personify it. And it's cute. Vyanavata is the fourth beast, electric eel. This is the kind of like the opposite of outward in. It's inward out. It's kind of like releasing the body's inner digestive chi through the external regions of the body. So I thought, oh, an electric eel does a lot of that, like energy distribution. And also makes a cool shape when it bites a fish and then wraps its negative pole tail around it, so it gets this nice electric field and basically shocks the prey. And it gives these voltage volleys, and then each volley that hits the fish, the muscle contractile response goes down, so it ends up becoming exhausted. But yeah, I think that's interesting, a way to use your own personal bodily energy to overcome someone else's. But yeah, I think it's the chi moving from the core of the body outward. So it's going to be, once the food is digested, this is the wind that moves nourishment across and throughout the body. Which is important, right? Because if I make a bunch of good food and I stir everything correctly, the fire is good, and then I don't send it to the rest of the body, then it's like, it's waste. The food is wasted. There's no point. So this is, again, a transport concept. All of the air beasts are going to be about transport, movement, and direction. Apanavata is the most important, I think, the exodus of bats. And this is the fifth beast, I think. Yeah, fifth beast. And this has to do with the downward and out movement. So in a way, prana is like downward and in, from the face down to the middle. But this is the apana, from the middle and stuff down, out through the sex organs, through the anus, pee, all of these like wastes, right? So the stuff that the Brajaka Pitta, when they destroy blood cells and everything and all that stuff, the ultimate expulsion will end up being with Apanavata, the exodus of bats. This beast is the one that actually removes all the waste materials, the stuff that can't be reprocessed and reused to make new cells or new tissues, is then removed completely. And so if this process is disturbed, it is very quickly disturbing to all the other winds, and they all shut down. So Apanavata is like very, very, very important. Just like if the garbage people went on strike for 3 months in this country, it would be very interesting to see what would happen. It would be chaos. It would completely shut down infrastructure in some ways, I bet you. Especially New York, which is a fucking shithole. Sorry, it's not. It's just like the rat issue. It's just like disgusting. It causes a lot of toxic, right? Because then trash, and then rats, and then disease. And so it's like this whole, like, it's a very important to the sanitation of the body that you're peeing regularly, that you're keeping these water channels clean. It's like cleaning your gutters out of your house, right? It's also the main throne of Vata is in the colon. So even most important of all is those bats. Sites of Kapha, last beasts, and then I'm going to take a quick break before we finish before I go on to finish the astrological stuff and how do we use this in astrology. But kapha, these are the sites: tongue, plasma, lymph nodes, mastic tissue, synovial fluid, stomach, pancreas, sinus, nose, mouth, throat, white matter, and meninges of the brain. So it's all very watery stuff. Secretory, sac-like, wet, squishy, snotty, mucus, plasma, immune fluid, white blood cell shit. That's kapha. Got it? Because those tissues tend to be more cold, heavy, dense, slimy, opaque, cloudy, stable, slow, and dull. The signs that really are affected in kapha is Taurus, Libra, Cancer, and Gemini, I see for some reason. Planets are Moon, Jupiter, and Venus. Moon is very kapha and watery. Her state will affect kapha a lot if you're very water sensitive like I am. I don't have any water in my chart. I'm just earth and fire. So Moon moving through very dry, or her Moon moving through waning state can be even more drying to me if it's already in an air sign. Jupiter is also rules a lot of the fats of the body and the kind of like fattiness of the body, fat distribution and metabolism, like the liver, breaking down those fats. Venus also is kapha, yeah, for sure, and very much an immune sense, in a vital sense, and also it's also like seminal fluids because it's semen, quality breast milk. So the first beast is the drooling dragon. So all your saliva in your mouth, that's the water quality. That's very important because you have to have saliva to digest glucose, carbohydrates, glycogen molecules have to be made first. Your food has to be coated in your saliva for it first. If you don't chew your food enough, it's not about the chewing. Yes, it is about the chewing, but it's mostly about getting the saliva mixed into the food, like patty cake. You don't do that. If you just scarf shit down like a wildebeest, you are gonna have problems, hun, because you're pissing off the Bodhika kapha. You're pissing off this dragon, and I wouldn't piss him off if I were you. Because yeah, his saliva causes gangrene within like a day, and then it won't heal, and like antibiotics won't work, and then you die because his bite is so insidiously toxic. So it's important to scrape your tongue, keep oral hygiene. It's very important to stay hydrated just for the drooling dragon alone because you don't want him to get crusty. Cletica kapha is the grazing boar. What are we doing here? Oh yeah, Cletica kapha is the grazing boar. And this is, wait, why is it? Oh yeah, this has to do with your joints and kind of like waters of the body that are like lubricate and support skeletal structures. And yeah, I call it the grazing boar because it's like, I don't know, it's sort of like this peaceful, there's this peaceful qualityness to Cletica kapha. And actually, it's not going to make sense if I start with that one. Let's start with Avalambaka kapha. We'll go to this one. This one has like the moisture in the lungs. Let's just keep it in the moist. So we have the moisture of the mouth, moisture of the lungs. And this is like when you inhale, there is a wetness to the mucosa, and that kind of protects you and it's like a filtration system, right? In and of itself. And yeah, it has a lot to do with like pneumonia and fluid buildup and like just keeping the respiratory wetness healthy, right? The wet areas in the mucosal bodies are more prone to infection because of their wetness and that quality of like it's just easier to colonize those warm, wet zones. So lungs especially, like lung illness, is all ruled by Avalambaka kapha, and you don't want it to get dried out. The main issue with kapha is drying, because when the kapha side of things dries out, then the vata issues come and take over, and then those beasts are crazy. So keeping all the kapha animals happy, all the kapha beasts happy, will bring down all the wind beasts. It will keep them cool. Likewise, keeping the fire beasts happy will keep the quality of the water beasts like good and keep the mucosa and the wetness and all of our secretions healthy because we're digesting in a healthy way. Oh wait, see, I knew it. Wait, what is Cledica kapha? Is that the? Oh, duh. Cledica kapha is. Why am I tripping on acid right now? Cledica kapha is the moisture of the. Is the upper half of the stomach. I always get Cledica and Schlesica mixed up. Cledica is the upper half of the stomach. It's kind of like the liquid necessary when you're making your stew, right? If you let the moisture all boil off, then you will burn. So it's like you have to keep the appropriate amount of moisture in the body. And of course, grazing animals, ruminants like cows and boars, are always eating, and they have I'm sure they're usually quite large and big boned and healthy and gorgeous, just like kaphas usually are, because they're more, I don't know, they're just gonna live longer. They're just healthier creatures, and they tend to have good oily, like furs and make hides that are different. Have you noticed, like, there's a difference between like a leopard's fur and like a ruminant's fur? Predators have different fur than grazers. I think it has a lot to do with kapha and what they eat and the fat distributions. Predators eat a lot of fat. Schlesica is the wetness in the joints. So arthritis attacks what? Schlesica kapha. It's all about structural health, connective tissue, myofascia. As I'm a massage therapist, I know that connective tissue is as important, if not more important, than the actual muscle fiber. The actual cell that sends the electrical impulse through the muscle, the contractile response through the nervous, innervated neuromuscular junction. That's all important. Congratulations. But that signal has to be insulated in myofascia and a fascia, a sheath, a myofascial sheath as well, and along the spine. Any sheath anywhere is Schlesica kapha. That's hard to say. Tarpaka kapha is the white matter. So now we're getting into the moisture of the brain and all of the kind of the gray matter, really. It's just your brain is water. It's just a watery sac, and it's your deep memory. It's your ancestral memory. It's not your sadhaka intelligence using immediate short-term memory and snap movements and that quick intelligence. Tarpaka kapha is it's what you consider your intuition and your own. It's like your own body's memory and your own intelligence. It's when we're traumatized, all of our deep memories go there. It's like deep old files. And karmic things can be stored here as well. It's anything representing our subconscious or things unseen. It's Tarpaka kapha for sure. I chose the elephant because elephants remember watering holes for years and years and years and years, sometimes up to like 60 years. They'll still remember the way to a place, and they can pass down knowledge of water to future generations and be like, oh hey, there's a watering thing over here. So that's, I think, where the memory comes from, just like water management. So I thought, oh, perfect for Tarpaka kapha, the watery memory of the bodies, which represent the brain. I probably should take a break really quick. Because we're going to start on the nitty-gritty hard stuff right now. And how do I do that? And I know it's recording. And I want to just pause it. And it won't pause. Okay, now I'm going to go take a break. That was so lame. Okay, y'all. It's what you're not supposed to do. During dry season, a dry person, eating a dry crisp. See, this is bad. I'm also drinking cold water. So, pop quiz, bitches. cold water and a dry crisp is going to increase those qualities of vata in my body, because vata is what? Cold and dry. Duh. So me eating this is going to be really bad for me and cause, imbalance long term. Digestively, it'll come up into some different ways that you can predict. But how to predict that I ate that crisp if you didn't know? Well, that's what you have to figure out diagnostically. Like, what the fuck are these people doing with their lives? These clients that come to you, what are they doing? You don't know these people. They're crazy. They want to feel special. But you need to know if they're pooping or not. And so that's why you're here to this video. Because people don't know what they need for their element. Every element has a different routine and a different, needs for, there's one of each disease, like a headache. There's a kapha headache, a pitta headache, and a vata headache. They're each going to require different diets, protocol, herbs, and when you take them and how you take them, what medium the herb is going to be in. It's a lot of work. This isn't easy. This isn't for fucking fuck offs. I just don't know who the fuck's watching this video. And I just want to make sure we're clear on that I don't have faith in you if you don't take this seriously. But if you do, then I do. So what am I sharing here? I'm going to be sharing mine. Why am I huge? Ah. Alright, is it annoying me chewing? Oh yeah, the point is, back to me. Yeah, so the Chinese also do this thing where they have different organs rule different times of the day. Well, if we use our brains here, we can say, well, different times of day will affect different beasts. So if we're trying to appease different beasts, we should use different types of day, or different types of hours of the day to treat them. Like Pitta is good between 10 and 2, AM and PM. So you don't have to ask AM or PM. It's both. Both. Between 2 and 6 Vata beasts. So that's why in the early morning you get up to go pee and poop, or that's why in the morning you want, why rush hour traffic, right? During these times, increased movement, increased mobility. 6 to 10 kapha beasts. The mucosal morning of coughing up phlegm and gross, nasty crusties and kapha disgustingness. 6 and 10 do all that between 6 a.m. and 10. But notice that you want to eat your biggest day in the middle of your biggest meal in the middle of the day, because that's when the fire is hottest, the pitta beasts are hotter and more active, right? So these are the organs in Chinese. Cool. I don't do it like this. I just group them up into the beast things, but cool if you're doing Chinese style. How to go yang, yang, yin, yin, yang, yang, yin, yin, yang, yang. So each period is blocked off between yin and yang organs, so they switch off. Oh yeah, different ages have different, elemental predispositions. That's not very hard to understand, is it? Yeah, during puberty, pitta goes up, and all the pitta beasts are angry because hormones and those secretions are kind of going out of control. And you're in pitta state until you're in 40, and then you go into vata. And that's why kapha babies are so chubby and their fat tissues are more increased, and they are, big eyes, beautiful hair, beautiful smile, teeth. Kapha life. It's that's when you're the most. You're most nourished, and your most virile is pitta, and then vata is your most frail and weak, but also your most free and liberated in some ways. I find psychologically, if you make it through this shitstorm of existence. Hopefully Ayurveda helps you do that. Oh god, I'm being really weird right now. Mars is in my first house, y'all. Speaking of planets in the body and the archetypes of health, good transition. Bad transition. Yeah, different planets rule different organs and shit. That's how this stuff works. That's how the transits works, right? Because if you know Jupiter ruling the liver is going into a fire sign, you can say, well, the liver might be more inflamed because I have cirrhosis or hepatitis C. So I'm going to know Jupiter and Aries. Sorry, Jupiter and Aries might be bad for me. Or Jupiter in the sign that rules the liver or like the digestion or something. Which could be Virgo, right? Virgo and honestly Libra. I see Libra ruling the liver. They gave it the kidneys, but I'm like, girl. Anyway, point is, Sun rules your life force, your heart, your circulation, your overall impulse to live. The left eye or the right eye, depending on your spirit. And then Moon is mucosa, the fluid barriers of the body, your breast, stomach, brain, eyes. Mars is the venting fever response, your adrenals, flight or fight. I just flight and cry, and then flight again. Immunity, prostate, male reproduction. Venus is kidneys, skin, hormones, the urinary tract. You can read. Can't you just read these? Oh wait, maybe some people can't read. That was rude of me. God, that was really ableist. Okay, fine. Saturn, teeth, tendons, bones, gallbladder, all kind of like the structures of the body. Saturn's he's like rules support networks, dense materials. Neptune is lymphatics, your inner ocean, and your immunity. And Uranus is kind of like another version of the electrical system, but it's more like your trauma endured and the unforeseen medically. It's more generational, right? The slower the planet, the more it affects like generations, like health as a generation, right? Like this era was marked by HIV and AIDS. This era was marked by typhoid fever. So it's like there's like diseases can be fad-like as well. And I feel like the outer planets help predict with those. Inners kind of show you more like main diagnostics of the body. So yeah, when these planets that represent things in the body and organs move through regions of the zodiac, they also affect regions of the body because of the cosmic man there in the central. So here you can see Aries starts, Pisces ends. So Aries is at the head, Pisces is at the feet. Old school drawing on the left, which is cute. I like it. Like Latin scribbles. I don't fuck with Ophiuchus, so I don't know why this is here. I just thought it was cool, like to like leave. You never know. Shit's weird. Uranus and Taurus. But yeah, so yes, say Mars and Pisces, you get your foot cut off on a lawnmower or something. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds horrible and like just awful, but that actually is kind of how literal the medical astrology is. It's like annoying. It's really, really annoying. Because yeah, that'll happen. You'll literally see that. You'll be like, well, that sucks. And then if big major events happen in people's lives, you can go back and pull charts for those things and be like, oh, you're sensitive to Mars and transiting your whatever. Wow, Mars and 6, car accidents. Have you noticed every car accident you've gotten in has been Mars and 6? No, they're not going to notice. They don't have time to notice this shit. That's your job. You're the astrologer. Stop, patronizing other people. Anyway, I'm sorry if you hear this woman upstairs making a lot of ruckus. So, the planetary doshas. Vata is the new moon, because the moon is 2 doshas. When she has less light, she's more Vata. When she has more light, she's Kapha. So Vata is new moon, Saturn, and Rahu. Pitta is Sun, Mars, and Ketu. Kapha is full moon, right? So Pitta is obviously going to be the more fiery planets, or the planets that will fiery things. Ketu is the south node. Rahu is the north node. And I see that medically, north node often will give more like Vata issues or Vata signatures. Ketu tends to be hotter. Mixtures are Kapha. A mixture of Kapha and Vata is Venus. Venus is like both. And then Jupiter is also both. And Mercury is all three. So yes, you can be multi-dosha, dual dosha, tridosha. But again, Mercury is still more vata than anything, because his dosha will change most sensitively and sporadically, because he is all three. That means he's juggling more energetically. So Mercury can give all three doshic disorders, can be responsible for that. Because also he rules messages of the body, so he tends to affect the nervous system and bring vata into the nervous system. So he brings those like easier stroke transit sometimes. So to determine the natal dosha of a person, right? Their prakriti from that first slides. To determine the natal dosha, you need to learn the master of the nativity, which is the lord of the sect light. So you find, if it's a night chart, you look at the moon, day chart, look at the sun, find who rules the planet that rules the sign that the luminary is in, is the master of the nativity. Find the lord of the ascendant sign and its rising planets. You'll have to know, like, use the traditional, right? Like, don't use Uranus and Neptune, and just do, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Easy. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck up the flow. The Atmakaraka is just the planet that, rising planets means things on the first, right? On the ascendant degree, things rising in the east when you were born are going to really affect you, especially psychologically. But the third one is Atmakaraka. It's the planet that's most advanced in a sign, who has the highest number of degrees within that given sign. So it means it's gone through the trenches of that sign. So it represents in some way your, it's like a minister of your life force. And it can definitely, bad transits to that planet are almost always in the death chart. I mean, almost, yeah, basically always. Your Atmakaraka. Psychologically, it's your nakshatra ruler. There's like lunar mansions, y'all. Do y'all know about that? Figure it out. There's a whole lunar culture, a whole lunar world of like the matriarchal societies of, they're not even matriarchal. Like, even the Arabs have these in the mansions, and they're very patriarchal. But maybe they weren't always like that. Warring shepherds at war. But yeah, the nakshatra. Find the mansion it's in, and then find the planetary attributes, and that will kind of help with psychological stuff. To determine the transit dosha, or like what might be going on in the person's life currently, you would then look at hard aspects, or things that are going on in the sky right now that are aspecting the ascendant degree or the sect light. So you can see, like, why are they a kapha but showing so much pitta? I see that they're a vata, but they're showing so much kapha, right? You can kind of diagnose and see, oh, okay, well, the planets, it doesn't make sense. It won't match up. But the sicker a person is, the more they're not going to match up with their birth chart. So you have to look at the transits to understand, like, oh, you have to understand also perfected Lord, perfected dark houses, understanding where all the perfections are. That's huge psychologically. Time Lords and dashas. So like the Vimshottari dasha in the Ayurvedic system. We also have a bunch of other doshas for like solar return and really cool stuff that is useful. I use the solar return rising lord a lot for health stuff. For illness, to describe the nature of the illness received, not necessarily the nature of the person's health. It'll be like the nature of like that, the weakness of the year will be that planet, rather than yeah, just like the weakness. Psyche would be the progressed moon. Always, always, always. That's always kind of what you're feeling. I always see that. So useful, so easy of a technique. You don't know about progressions, they're super fast, super easy to use. But that's beyond the scope here. So to really diagnose a planet, you're going to need to have 3 or more hard aspects, in terms of these aspectual afflictions. So conjunction and oppositions are usually really hard. Squares are hard. From benefics, it can be good if it's a superior square, but even then, it's like contention or like some compromise has to be made. Also, in terms of medically, when you're doing stuff medical for like the actual surgery, like surgery dates and like procedural dates, um, conjunctions and oppositions show problems that are very easy to see. It'll be like, oh, that's going to be an issue during the surgery because it's an opposition or a conjunction. When it's a square, it can be harder to see because it's like a domino effect. This difficulty caused that difficulty. But really, the issue is this difficulty. So squares are secret enemies in medical procedures. Open benefic aspects that are just plain to see are trines. Those are easy to see. You'll feel them, be able to work with them. It'll facilitate, expedite, move things along quicker, which can be good or bad, right? If someone's dying, trines can actually, a trine can kill a person in some way. If it's an influx of energy where they're not able to endure, or they, it's just in bad houses, or a difficult sign ruling a region that's potentially already weak. Benefic aspects that are secret are sextiles. Those work in mysterious, secret, good ways. I think people downplay the importance of sextiles because they can't really see how the sextiles are working in their lives because they're not perceptive enough. And if you're not perceptive, you're gonna need to be able to see patterns and be perceptive. That is a part of perception. Malefic houses are hard, right? All of the dark houses: second house, 12th house, 6th house, 8th house. Eclipsed luminaries. If there's any type of eclipsed sun or moon, that's going to be really hard. The person's going to end up having a really faded life, or end up having a really faded illness, or a faded thing happen. It'll be very, just in general, more faded. In the bins is like when the moon and the sun are like squaring the nodes, or in a T, like a, they're it's called being in the bins, being halfway between each point, between nodal point. That's considered a sort of stress for the luminaries, for the sun and the moon. The midpoint of the malefics, that's when you have a planet that's like in between Saturn and Mars, like at the degree between them. It's supposed to be extra stressful zone. And then retrograde benefics get weak. Retrograde malefics tend to be strong, which causes medical issues, right? You don't want your benefics weak and your malefics strong, because your malefics are more Mars and Saturn tend to be extreme, so they bring extreme temperatures, extreme qualities. Remember those 20 qualities? They tend to be way more like way less of a balance and way more aggravating. And then if you have a planet that's besieged or flanked by malefic rays, and this is all for looking at the natal chart, right? But it can also be applied to, like I was saying, medical procedures or like some electional stuff. Flanked by malefic rays, you don't want things to be in between the malefics. The Time Lord system, which I was talking about earlier, that's important. They basically say that every human in one 120-year cycle will have different planets will rule different periods of that time. And depending on your lunar mansion will be where you start in that cycle. So I started on Mercury, other people will start in different parts. Then there are sub-periods too. So I could be in a Mercury-Venus period, or a Mercury-Venus-Mars period. You keep dividing time down to different planetary rulerships to see which aspects are going to be activated or triggered. So it kind of helps. Time Lords helps your transit and your medical diagnostics, because it also helps you understand just where the overall part of the person's life is being highlighted, and then also just like regions of the body, because each planet rules the signs that it rules and the regions that it rules. So if I know I'm in a Saturn planetary period, then I know Saturn things are going to be coming up more, and then Saturn's signs and the houses that he rules in my chart are going to be places and subjects that are more prone to coming up, or will be more visible, more thematic. The nakshatra, the lunar mansions, as I was saying, each one is 13 degrees, and it's divined by a major star. So I was Revati in the sidereal Piscean Revati star. So yeah, you're gonna need to know your nakshatra, just period, or your Arabic one. I forget the name of it. So yeah, what could go wrong to someone in a doshic way? Well, you have kulaja, genetic predisposition issues to your doshas, but genes are only relevant in terms of environment. Genes are activated by environment. Sahaja, etiological factors during pregnancy, mother's lifestyle, emotional state during pregnancy. So yeah, that has a lot to do with the gestation period and all the doshas that can come. The mother's very stressed. She can have a more vata child or change the dosha of the kid just through like etiological factors during pregnancy. Dosha is just mainly the one we can manipulate. Wrong diet, lifestyle. It's just like prajna paradha, just like a doshic quality, a lifestyle issue. Abhigata is physical or psychological trauma. Purva vyadhi is previous illnesses that are manifesting as new. So it's like a weakening, a fracture, or like a fracturing of the glass that causes more and more fracturing. And then, of course, trauma has its own healing rules, and because psychological stuff is involved. That can really affect your digestion, your mood, right? That mind-body thing is very real. Wow, this person upstairs, sorry about the knocking. Sparshana is, how do we diagnose someone? So we look at the chart, they're coming over, and then they're here. Now what do? Well, we want to look at, I can touch people and diagnose their tissues because I'm an LMT, which is a massage therapist, but doctors and massage therapists are generally people that can do this, chiropractors. People that are allowed to manipulate tissue. So we can touch and feel and like see, look for like things in the stomach. We can check for tumors. We can, you can touch the person, listen to the heart, listen to the lungs. I get so much more access to the person's body when I can touch them. But questioning is also good, helping people to reveal what's going on. They may not know the information you need, so you have to ask it and draw it out of them. But also times they'll just tell you interesting things that you didn't ask for, and that might be key. So you have to both listen and balance what you think that is the right thing to talk about, balancing that with what the person has come here to say. You see the difference? Do you see what I just said? That's where I struggle a lot. I'm just like, oh, let me just barf on you. And in reality, they're saying what they need. They're saying what they're going through if you are keen to listen. And so observing them and observing their physical darshana, like it's just observation. Just observing them, what you see. And that can be like looking into someone's eyes, fingernails, think this visual scan. That's the easy one. The eightfold one is kind of more advanced of Ayurvedic diagnosis. I feel like the Brady Bunch. Yeah, so eightfold method, you're going to want to be looking at, the most important are Shabda and testimony, as I was saying over here, what the person's saying, the quality of their voice, they're like shaking, crying, loud, mad. How the person says what they're trying to say also reveals a lot about the dosha. If not, that's like the most key thing. Pitta people, you'll see, Pitta people speak in a usually very clear, sharp, precise, loud, interruptive way, and you need to explain. You can't just give them directions, you have to tell them why. Vata people tend to be really sweet and more like creative, and like the session will be hard to stay on focus, and the Vata person won't implement what you give them very long. They'll stop doing the diet, they'll stop doing the stuff because they're changeable and like windy. They find other things to do, or they just can't. They're not ready to make the choices unless they're in significant pain. Then they'll make those changes, the choice to change. Kathas tend to be also very slow to start, but once they get going in the routine, they make it a part of their like lifestyle and their life habit more permanently. But they're just you have to motivate them a lot. And you'll be able to, this is important, right? Because understanding the nature of each element psychologically will help you as a counselor be better. Counselor or a herbalist or whatever you want to do it. Which is honestly, if you're an herbalist, you're going to have to be a counselor. Because you have to counsel on how to use herbs and like the appropriate way to do it. You can't just throw herbs at someone and then that's it. That's not how herbalism works. But yeah, there's also, looking at someone's eyes, if they look tired, bloodshot. Eyes reveal a lot about like psychological stuff too. Spasha is your skin. That's going to be hydration levels and seeing like, just traumas, injuries, what you can see maybe their job through their skin. Um, when you shake their hand, you'll be able to feel, oh, this person's probably, works with their hands a lot. Their hands, they might be a carpenter or a construction worker. So it's just like little things you can ask, and you can say, oh, hey, are you a construction worker? Well, yes, I am. How'd you know? It's like, well, I'm using darshana, observation. Urine is, these are more intimate, but these are the most important. Looking at someone's stool or having them tell you about it or fill out the Agni form will tell you mostly about the Pitta side of things, which is your digestive capacity. That's the proof is in the poo and the urine. The proof is in the poo and the pee, and that's not going to lie. You smell the consistency, how many times they're going. Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it a combination? And then that was going to be the primary element that's governing the stomach. And that's like in basketball, that would be like the element with the ball. Because the one controlling that digestion is the one that's like involved in all those cups spilling water. So it's like isolating the doshas that are actually causative. And so you really want to look at the stool and pee for that before you start looking at the doshas that have moved into the more external or superficial tissues, because those aren't going to show the deeper problems. Isn't that right? But they're keys, they're clues to see how the things are manifesting. Tongue is really great too for like very recent imbalances. It shows like what the person has even been eating recently or how they're like chewing their food. It also shows you like just skeletal. It can show you where the pain in the person's body is. It's very easy to see through the tongue, even along the spine. So having hip issues, I can tell as a massage therapist where a person's pain is going to be just by looking at the midline of their spine. There'll be weird cracks in the battle. That would be a crack here is like thoracic. This would be lumbar. So it's just like where on the tongue I see the cracks will show me where the person's having severe pain. It's like, I don't know, 80% accurate. Pulse is a more esoteric one that was added later to Ayurveda. It's kind of hard to do, hard to teach, but basically you feel the kinetic energy of the circulation to try to figure out a person's vitality and strength, and like what elements are kind of most agitated. For me, it's often Vata, right? Because I'm Vata, I'm hella Vata, Saturn ruled. So Saturn and Mars, which is both makes kind of like, I guess I'm a Vata Pitta then, really. But as I get older in different stages of my life, I'm going to become more and more Vata because I'm moving through Pitta phase into Vata phase. So yeah, here's a kind of like a zoom in on the tongue. You want to look at the overall shape: swollen, thin, cracks, midline, tooth marks. Tooth marks on here are going to show indigestion. Swollen tongue is going to show a lot of inflammation or like in different regions. But generally, basically, this is the anus at the back of the tongue all the way to the top of the head, which is the tip of the tongue or the mouth. So if you just imagine stretching the mouth, all of these GI tract all along the tongue, you can kind of see. And the different organs, the kidney is going to be more towards the back, liver is going to be like midline, and then kind of the upper body, the lungs and the heart. So kapha stuff is going to be all up here. So it's going to basically go kapha, pitta is the middle, and then vata is the back of the tongue. So that, of course, if you can look at someone's tongue and you see coatings in the back, you're going to see, okay, well, they have toxins building up in the colon. Or if it's blue. So colors, you want to look at the shape, the colors. Blue tends to be kapha, wind, dryness, drying out. Red tends to be more heat and pitta, easy. But there's also purple, which is combinations. Coating on the tongue is important to look at. Yellow, white, thick. There's normal coatings for different things. Pitta sometimes normally do have a little bit of a yellowness, and that's kind of fine for them. But too much is a problem, right? Thick or thin, you want to see if it's bluish or black and see if it just looks like more like is it a thin liquidy coating or is it a thick cheese like cottage cheese kind of like coating? That's when you know the person smokes cigarettes or is accumulating major toxins. And then obviously if the tongue will have its own neurological issues as well. Is it quivering? Is it stiff and hard? Is it restless? Is it deviated? That's going to tell you a lot about the spine of the person. And if the overall neurological activity. You can do the doctor thing where you hit someone's knee and see if they, are responsive. That's a thing to testing vitality, but also the best thing is just look at the person's tongue. This is more of that if you want to get really good at it. Yeah, a healthy tongue is basically centrally aligned, pinkish red, same as tongue body all over. The edges are just even. Very little fur, absent marks, still movement, oval shape, even surface, visible texture of buds, and a translucent thickness. But yeah, you don't want to have like misaligned tongues, gray, red, white tongue, thin, eroded, or dented tongues, gray, yellow, white. Cuts are also, you see cut, sliced up tongues, that's very vata issue. And then where you see the slices will be literally a map of the person's weaknesses in their organs. It's like kind of intense. Here are pictures. You see sensitive colons tend to have stuff in the back. Kidney disorders have stuff back and then laterally towards the edge. You'll see inflammation or marks or X's or cuts or deviations. Delicate heart will always be right central center. Depressions on the lungs are on the side of the tongue towards the front. That's always lung stuff. And like when you get sick, that's when you see that side of the tongue pale out or get ridges or hard. Brown and froth is like lung stuff as well, but also unabsorbed nutrients if there's really, really strong teeth marks. White with red perimeter, shivering tongue, and deep line and cracks. Let's just look at my tongue. I just ate a little bit though, but hopefully you can maybe see. There's a coating. It's a little bit of some toxin. I've been drinking a lot recently, but also you can see that drinking is causing heat in the tip of the tongue. You can kind of see some scalloping on the sides, but it's slight. And then you see those marks on the midline of the tongue. And indeed, my mid back is where I have some spinal pain. So that's there, and sure enough, the midline of my body, that's where all of my issues are. Yeah, gross. That was disgusting. Yeah, lines on the face. Read people's faces. Anxiety lines, liver, spleen, and prostate stuff tend to be on the forehead, and skepticism and like anger and like because people will furrow their brow. That's going to be the emotion the face that they make a lot. Hemorrhoids will be along the middle of the nose. Grief will be on the top of the mouth. Malabsorption, the stronger your lines, the less nutrients you're getting. Lung issues will be like lines and issues along the nose. Loss of outer eyebrow, hair loss in the eyebrows is hypoglycemia, diabetes, and anxiety. So it's very blood sugar stuff. Prominent middle veins is like, stroke history or like weakness in vascular brain vasculation. High blood pressure is like sunken temporalis. If you have like prominent blood vessels as well, or alcoholism when it's all in the nose, that those veins and things are kind of coming up. And the chin area, it's low libido and grief. Usually, like when you have this butt chin, like I do, it shows like, the person tends to be having a more grief, low libido, lack of connection. Double chin, thyroidism for sure, or future hypothyroidism. And then of course, really strong neck muscles is showing someone who labors to breathe or coughs a lot, and they might have emphysema or cough or smoke. And yeah, chronic grief and stuff is just going to be all kind of towards the bottom of the mouth. And then weak prostate will be tip of the nose, I think here as well. Yeah, the eye has different colors too, right? Rheumatoid arthritis can kind of show up with scleritis or inflammation of the eyes. Jaundice is if your eyes are yellow, and then a really muddy, milky, or opaque eyes can be kind of like diabetic. You can even tell if someone has received mother's milk if they have a really sunken fossa down here along the clavicle and the solar plexus as well. And then, of course, you can tell if someone's had a stroke because they're going to have a really hairy ears. You see that in old men. Or not stroke, heart attack, sorry. The more coronary stuff, the more hair will grow. And then grooves on the ears are usually serious traumas or illnesses. So dosage mediates the axis between medicine and poison, as I was saying earlier. So matra is like the amount needed. It's the measurement you need for each illness. Like, you know, how much of an herb will I need for this specific stuff? So you have to determine the nature of the beast, their severity, and then prognosis, where they're at in the diagnostic state. So this is kind of like Dasha Vida Chikitsa. This is one of the more advanced ones. This is another realm of diagnostics. We went through 3, 8, and now this is like, it's supposed to be 10, but there's quite a few on here, more than 10. So you want to look at the person's age, the drug you're using, the dosage form, and the drug's physical state. Is it powder, liquid, intravenous, what? Time of administration, when you want to do the medicine, the tolerance of the person, if the medicine itself is going to hurt them, because like a person's weak, a medicine that normally helps people could actually kill them. So it's the person's adaptability, which is also your pitta. Your strength of your pitta will determine your adaptability. Genetic factors is your prakriti. We can see that in the birth chart. Diet and environment, we can see that through transit and through all the eightfold diagnosis we just did, which was tongue, eyes, looking and making those physical observations. Koshta is the biological membranes. That's kind of hard to explain right now. Enzymatic action is your metabolism. That's going to be just like checking the stool and the pee, right? Because that's going to be like how they're digesting. That's how you're going to determine what to give them. Because if their stool is really loose, you know that you don't want to be giving like herbs that are known to give loose stools. You're going to cause them imbalance. You're going to give herbs that have more stamban quality, which is like fixing or holding or stambana. Bala is the internal strength of the person, just like the overall fortitude you see, which goes along with age and all these other things. And then the pathological state, which has advanced illnesses. You can be a really strong person, but your illness is quite advanced, and it doesn't really matter because it's already moved along. Dosha is, of course, just like your natural constitution. And then the route of administration for the medicine itself. Am I going to put it in the eyes, in the nose? Is it a spray? Inhalant? Does it go in the ears? The route of administration is key as well. So all of those add up to determine what to do to help someone in an imbalance. And an imbalance can be typically defined as the 6 tissue states of the physio-medicalist tradition. Kapha things have to do with moisture, so it's going to bring your illnesses of damp stagnation or dry atrophy. Pitta deals with temperature, so that's when you're going to get your cold depression and your excited, agitated, hot tissues, because temperature can go hot or cold, moisture can go dry or wet. And then tone, which is the third one, has to do with tension, or like the transport of the body, really how nutrients are being transported. That's what tension really is trying to describe. So when something's tense, it can be hyperactive, but then even fail to really distribute things efficiently because it's so tense. And then flaccidity is a more earthen thing and tends to be have its own edema and like things where tissues aren't being cleared, swelling, just flaccidity can be a tone issue of vata. And so with these different 6 states, we want to use 7 core herbal energetic actions, which is heat, cool, moisten, dry, stimulate, relax, tonify. That's it. That's really all we're trying to do. Typically, we want to be catching, we want to get good at diagnosis so we can catch these imbalances earlier so diet and herbs will work and be effective and kind of bring the person back into alignment, and the body can heal itself. And the body can, get the nutrients it needs and the sleep that it needs, and the balancing all the senses can fortify the immunity, change the nervous system, affects your hormone production. Like it's just like it's not just diet and exercise and herbs. It's a total lifestyle shift in order to affect these different tissue states. So again, I was talking about earlier about how the traditional benefics tend to be a balanced mixture of all these qualities of fast, slow, the ones I just said. Benefics tend to be balanced, malefics tend to be imbalanced, right? Mars, Saturn, Sun, and the nodes are the polar extreme nature that have intense medical repercussions. As such, they are not conducive to life and are happy to take the life force from the native. These are the primary concerns of medical astrologers as working with malefics. Sensory energetics. Of course, when you're giving someone a dietary regimen and you found out what planets are weak and you found out which element is, needs to be brought forward and which one needs to be like lessened, you can change the diet thereby and change the herbs. Every substance has a rasa, which is your sensory energetic, or just your. Rasa really means juice, but it also can mean your force, life force. So we see that sweet is water and earth, sour is earth and fire, salty is fire and water. Then you have bitter being air and ether, pungent being fire and air, and astringent being air and earth. So that means that each flavor then has its own kind of effect on tissue. Sweet will slow tissues down, wet them, and cool them off, which is very important for inflammatory issues, pitta issues. So therefore we know pitta, it brings pitta down, it reduces pitta. So then you look at your chart, anything that has a plus next to the flavor will be whether it increases or decreases that dosha. That's all we want to do. It's not good or bad, it's just increase or decrease. Sweet decreases vata and pitta. So I want to use that in vata and pitta disorders. I do, because it brings it down. But I don't want to use it in kapha disorders. So if a person is has accumulated toxins and they're kind of have swelling or water issues, I'm not going to be giving them a bunch of coconut juice and rice and wheat and a really carbohydrate heavy dense diet. That's not going to work. I'm not going to give them sweet, nourishing, water building herbs like marshmallows and unctuous stuff. No, I'm going to be giving things that bring kapha down, which is what? Bitter, pungent, astringent. K down. V down is sweet, sour, and salty, and sometimes pungent. Pungent can also be drying, right? Heating things can dry you, but they can also bring vata to warmth. So it warms it up, but you just need the right amount of thermogenics, thermonutrients, right? Thermonutrients is very important when we're talking about formulations for Ayurveda, because we can actually put herbs in that help you to digest the herbs if things are weak. So these are the 5 kalpanas, the 5 main preparations you'll make as a witch. I mean, as an herbalist and astrologer and talisman maker. But use the right time of moon, for the right herb. But gathering herbs at the right time of day is important. Roots at certain times, leaves at certain times, flowers at certain times. Generally, morning is the best when in doubt. Yeah, making expressed juices is number 1. That's just when you squeeze a plant, a foliage, or juicy thing, and then use the either compound, make pastes with it, or compound it's raw natural elements, or cook it a little bit. Kalka is a paste, like I was saying. You can make a paste either by macerating things into a paste or adding moisture to powders. Decoction is when you take those powders or those herbs or macerated stuff and boil it down. Generally, the rule for Ayurveda is 16 parts water, and you boil it down to 4 parts water. So, 16 parts to 1 part water. 1 part herbs to 16 part water, boil it down to 1/4 of the volume of liquid, and that's considered a decoction. Anything other than that is not a decoction. I guess it would be like an infusion. A fanta is a hot infusion when you just pour hot water over herbs and then let them steep for an indeed period of time. But that's also the first step of making fermentation stuff too. It's those herbs have mold and things in it, and it's from making kind of like wines. Cold infusion is like when you do the same thing, but you don't put hot water, you put cool water. And that's for pitta illnesses, because you want to use like cooling flowers and herbs. And, you know, your toner spray, that's very hema. Vehicles. So depending on what you want to do with your hema, or what you want to do with your different preparations, your 5 substances that you now have, you have to put those herbs in a vehicle. And in this image, we see the gods, the deities rather, devas are riding an animal. And I think that deities are the medicine and the drug action. And then I think the vehicles help to support or hinder or make worse the message or the job of Shiva. Let's say if Shiva on the right there was actually on the back of, like, I don't know, a hippo, maybe he's less comfortable. So finding the right medicine for the right vehicle. Vata likes fats, topical oils, wet pastes, very, very wet slurry paste, and food, and sweet strengthening food. Those are all really good vehicles for Vata. You can actually put medicine in food so they're nourished. But yeah, fatty things that build the structures and the wetness and the lubrication and the strength of the body. That's going to be Vata vehicles. So you can also put, if you put kapha, like Vata herbs, like say you put really bitter herbs in a fat, it's going to be less bad for Vata because the fat will help. So the vehicle helps make the medicine makes it better for your constitution, right? So putting Vata things inside of fats can actually change the difference between me not being able to take a medicine and me being able to. Pitta, of course, wants cool teas, cool infusions, dry pastes, because pittas tend to be oily, wet, slimy, stinky, sour. So you want to use dry pastes. You don't want to be building up too much of the water quality unless they're dry, in which case they may be like a pitta vata, in which case you want to be treating whatever the predominant dosha is first. Keep that one in mind, because that's the one you want to focus on or pay heed to. Kapha likes liniments, which is like alcohol stuff, tinctures, powders, and pungents, like very dry powders. Dry paste is different than dry powders. Dry pastes are still a little wet. It's just not like a powder bath, which kapha needs. And also they need a lot of pungents. So putting things in like really hot, spicy stuff for kapha is always going to be good for a kapha. Just throw spices at kapha. Also, pitta likes glycerin, which is tinctures that are sweet. They don't really get this, depending on the condition or where it is in the body. You don't want to be giving them like alcoholic tinctures. It can make digestive stuff more like problematic. And one vehicle that we haven't really talked about is caffeine. It makes your vata go up, so it really makes it's bad for vata because it increases pitta, and then really can bring kapha down. So kaphas can put herbs in coffee, and it'll help transport the herbs through their more like sluggish circulatory system. So yeah, it does have negative effects, and every vehicle does have negative effects, right? Like this is true for butter, this is true for milk, this is true for, vata. If you're putting things in all those fat stuff, there's positive stuff for vata, but again, there's negatives. So caffeines is anxiety, vasoconstriction, reduced control, stimulation of urination, but also has this lower risk of cardiovascular disease, lower risk of diabetes, the main one is increased metabolic rate. That's the one we want to focus on. Taming the beasts. So what do we do to like make this stuff work? How do we like calm down an imbalance? We've chosen the herbs. Everything's ready. We figured out the dosha, the time of day. Everything's kind of moving along, but we need to figure out like we need to do a cleanse first. We determine the client is like late stage in the samprapti, the pathological process. So we need to tame the beasts. So first we have to make sure that our planets, the problematic planets, that their flavor, the opposite of if they're excessive, you want the opposite of their flavor. And if they're deficient, you want to bring more of that flavor into the diet. And we're going to use more sour herbs if Venus is low, sweet if Jupiter is low, bitter if Mars is deficient, astringent if Saturn is deficient and low. But if you have strong Saturn, you don't want to be doing a lot of astringent herbs and a lot of astringent foods. If you have a strong Mars, you don't want to be doing a lot of bitter. You're going to be doing the opposites. So the opposite qualities of bitter, which are what? Basically sweet. And then Mercury, of course, is umami, which is all the flavors in one, because Mercury is like multifaceted. It usually represents like, the trifecta, the 3-in-1. So to tame the beast, we give as Ayurvedic practitioners apatya, which is, it's more important to tell someone what not to do than giving them orders. I'm going to pacify the beast by slowly removing things that are aggravating it and giving like safe protocol that have very little side effects, and then returning the doshas to their rightful thrones in the GI tract. So essentially you're taking the water that has spilled it in the cups and like slowly moving back up towards the one cup, pushing the elements back to where they belong through these very palliative, neutral, benign, middle road lifestyle habits. So lots of oil massage, steam soaks, scrubs and pokes, nutrition change, daily yoga, meditation, practice a controlled celibacy, and psychological therapies. And that will all help the senses align to the body, which will kind of like get rid of, honestly, like 60% of issues. But that's stage one. That's just to get the doshas to, like, that's like corralling. This is like taming the beast or corralling them into like a zone, into a pen. Then you want to set them free. This is the heart of panchakarma, right? So they've gone to their thrones. Kapha's gone to its yellow zone. Pitta's gone to red. Vata's gone to blue. And they've gone to the pradhana karma, which is the main side of each dosha and the launch pad that ejects the imbalanced element out of the body after rigorous preparation. So say we've done the stage one, taming the beasts for a couple weeks. We've gotten the person kind of on a daily routine that's more aligned with them. Most of their main symptoms are kind of appeased. But now they're ready. They're ready to expel the element and hopefully be healed. So for kapha, we want to be doing nasal irrigation like neti and vomiting, medicated vomiting with salt water and licorice. Pittas need bloodletting and blood removed either through leeches or modern day like blood draws, and virechana, which is laxatives. So giving them, sometimes if a fire is already, you got to push the fire out and down. You don't want to bring fire up if it's a heat condition. You want to be vomiting out pitta. You want to be making sure that you're moving things quickly through. You don't want fire sitting in either the duodenum or in the gates of the body. So laxatives will help with that. And then vata people, we live by enemas because we need to be constantly hydrating, nourishing, and basically hydrating and nourishing. Because I do like honey oil enemas, right? They're not just like water enemas. And then, so you do like rounds and rounds and rounds of enemas. Like the first one's water. The second one is like a medicated oil, tailam, tea mixture. The third one is just the tea mixture. And the fourth one is water again. So then after that, you're feeling pretty good. It's honey and oil going up your butt and like holding it. It's incredibly nourishing to the mucosa. And honey has got this superpower of being scraping the mucosa, which is why when we make medicine for kaphas, honey is actually the best vehicle. Vata is like ghee. Pitta can be like tea and milk. Milk is good for pitta, honestly, like sweet drinks, coconut water. And then for kaphas, you want to be giving things definitely in honey and ginger. Honey and ginger are great vehicles for kapha. Then the last stage is once the animals are gone, you have to clean up the house or once the beasts have destroyed the apartment, you have to reconstruct the tissues of the body. The elements have been released through these medicated enemas. Most of the disease state has kind of been removed, the main symptoms, and then hopefully, we want to be nourishing the body because you're weak after the animals leave because you're doing medicated vomiting or laxatives. It's draining. You need to be rehabilitating yourself. And basically on the right, you can see that every tissue creates the next tissue. So food is so important because it turns into rasa, which is like plasma, pre-digested food stuff. It makes rasa, which then creates breast milk and menstrual fluid. But rasa, plasma makes blood makes muscles makes fat makes bone makes bone marrow and nervous system tissue, and nervous system tissue makes semen and reproductive tissue. And this is the branch that Rasayana, the aphrodisiacs branch, deals with, is getting these tissues to be nourishing each other and getting these tissues by manipulating Shukra. So whatever tissue you want to nourish, it will nourish the one after that. It's like a fountain effect. So if you nourish Shukra, you're going to basically nourish the whole body. So that's the idea with aphrodisiacs. If I nourish the last one, all the ones before it will also be nourished. So here's an assessment for Vata Pitta Kapha. You want to be answering the Vata Pitta Kapha stuff for pre-puberty, or at the age when like either menarche and the woman, or like when maybe the voice just started to drop, or like testes start to descend in men. This is a stage of pre-pitta, because pitta will disrupt what the person's natural constitution is. So, basically go through these. You can pause the screen and then choose, like a column for each, and then mark a VPK, and then count up, which ones you have the most of. If all of your boxes are checked K, then you're probably a Kapha. But if there's a mixture, you can go through and then just see, oh, well, K and P have the same amount. Well, you might be a Pitta Kapha. You're dual doshic. And then here's another one. So just pause the screen on these and then like fill them out if you don't know, or go to an online like dosha calculator or find an Ayurvedic book or text. But they should have them online. You can do online questionnaires or just use these, some questions. And then the last two, again, pause the screen. So again, your highest score will represent your constitutional dosha and the ratio of your highest functioning self. And then to determine your current dosha imbalance, again, we want to do an Agni test or metabolic test, which is stool and urine and sweat, wastes of the body. Sweat will tell you too, not as much as urine and poop, but sweat will also tell you. Like, you can smell sweat. I can smell a person's dosha imbalance. Like, oh, you have a bitter sweat. I can tell you're very dry right now. Like, oh, you have a very sour sweat. That's easy. Sour is very easy to recognize in sweat. And that's when you know the person's like pitta or hot or like inflamed. God. These are, do different charts. The Indians use square charts. I know you're used to using circles if you're a Westerner. But the South Indian style, all the signs stay the same, and then the rising will change with this little mark. So, whereas this one, all the houses stay the same, but then all the signs change. So they can actually show you different things. And this one's really great for angles, like all the 4 square in the middle. These are your stakes, your most important 1, 4, 7, 10, who you are, where you live, who you're with, what you do. And then you can figure out like angles for each. It gets easy to read when you decode it. That Taurus, that these two are opposite each other. Trining each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then these would be opposite each other, these two. So 8 and 2 are opposite, 2 and 6 are in a trine. So you always know that this triangle will show you a trine Leo. And you don't know that Sagittarius will be trining Leo. So it can get fast. You just have to train your eyes. And then the square is really great for seeing perfections, all types of things. Like it just has its certain angles and stuff like that. It's better. I use mostly South Indian. The Ayanamsha, people are like, well, what's the difference between tropical and sidereal? I want to do, I don't want to do sidereal. I don't want to do the Jyotish in that way. Well, this is a chart showing the gap between, the sidereal and the tropical zodiacs. And again, so they're aligned in some phases of time, but in some phases, like here you can see the Ayanamsha is the difference. You can see it'd be 24 days or 23.8 degrees of arc on the circle or on the zodiac. So one is aligned to the Gregorian calendar, being the tropical, and then one has to choose a galactic center or galactic point to be measured. So you can use a star like Spica, or you can use, anything really, honestly. But yeah, it's a totally different way of measuring time, and it has its own useful properties, I think, on a psychological way. Honestly, it's just lunar and solar. It's the way I view the difference between them um, in terms of application. But I use tropical. I don't use sidereal. I use Jyotish with I use tropical with Jyotish techniques and Indian techniques. I don't think you have to, I think you can experiment, and I see a lot of really good results. My teacher does that. He's really smart. Here's different example charts of like what an Indian reading would look like with his software. But you can see that there's lots of calculations. We have our Vargas, our divisional charts, and the dignities that are there. And so we look at 60 different chart dignities. So that's what I'm saying. It's like when someone gets a reading from me and they're like, why is it so expensive? It's like, well, A, it's not that expensive for what I'm doing. You're just cheap or broke. And then B, it's fucking time consuming, and I have a life, and it doesn't involve you or revolve around you. I guess it involves you now, but you're my client. Anyway, point is, and also like I do a really thorough job. Like you look here, here's your dignities of this person's birth chart. Oh, I think this is my ex's chart. I shouldn't have done that. That's fuck him. But yeah, you can see that there's dignity, your strength of your planet, which is either childhood, middle-aged, old age, or death. And then you have Jagradi, which is their sleepiness, whether or not they're sleepy, asleep, or awake. And then the Lord of the planet. And that will. So those are your avastas. We call them avastas. I just blinked. But anyway, here's another one. I'm not going to go through a reading right now because I'm getting tired. I'm sick of talking. I think that's it. So, yeah, thanks for going through that tedious information with me. I feel really tired. I should go eat food. So, yeah, I hope this helps with your herbalism and that you understand that, like, you can't just willy-nilly throw tinctures like a Westerner. You can't just, like, go to the Western shop and, like, get your alcoholic tincture and take that and have that be, like, a remedy for everything. That's good for quick-acting, like, kapha disorders of the respiratory upper channels. I use tincture. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying you have to, like, level up. You can't be this basic your whole life. And you have to, like, learn an energetic system. And you have to, like, put the work in and put the hours in. It's taken me a long time and a lot of money to learn Ayurveda. But I think this stuff should be free, like was said in the oath earlier at the beginning of the presentation. But, like, y'all, like, I can't do work for you. So you have to look at the charts, and you really have to, like, take good notes about the people that come to you for herbalism or for psychology or whatever health practitioner you are. Take good notes, because even if it's not a professional case study, they're case studies to you, and that's what matters. Each person is a case study. In fact, each friendship is a case study if you're a really truly aware astrologer. Each person becomes its own study, its own universe of learning in terms of medical astrology and medical preparations, herbal preparations. So again, thank you so much. Go to watch my videos, the rest of them, Queer Astrology Club and astrovedicus.wordpress.com. You can feel free to get a reading or something, or drop me a line here. I don't know. Let's work it out.